right, welcome to our daily virtual keeper chat from Buttonwood Park Zoo in Massachusetts. We are back in our Rainforest, Rivers, and Reefs building with another exciting addition with one of our primate species. I am joined today by our director, Keith Lovett, who's going to be telling us a little bit more about who we're going to meet, and then we'll obviously take all your questions as always. So I'm going to hand it over to Keith.
Well, welcome everyone. We're in our Rainforest, Rivers, and Reefs building. This is a building we opened in July 2017, and it's a great place here at the zoo, especially on a day like today where it's not so great out and there's a little bit of rain out there. We are in front of our Bolivia exhibit, which of all the exhibits in Rainforest, Rivers, and Reefs has the most amount of species. We do a lot of mixed species exhibits here at the zoo, and we have tons of different primates, birds, reptiles, all in one exhibit here in our Bolivia exhibit. And some of the highlights of this exhibit is our Titi monkeys and our pygmy marmosets, but we have a lot of different bird species and reptile species we'll be talking about as well.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us a little bit, our Bolivian Titi monkeys may have a different personality than the emperors we met last time we were with you, so maybe explain a little bit about their personalities and why we may be waiting for them to come down?
So for all the primate species that are in Rainforest and Rivers and Reefs, the only one that is not considered what is called a callitrichid, which is a marmoset or tamarin, are our Titi monkeys. Our Titi monkeys are a different type of animal. They are a different type of monkey. They are still from South America. They're actually found in Brazil and Bolivia, mostly in Bolivia, but they're a different type of monkey. Whereas callitrichids, they are mostly insect eaters, gum eaters. These guys eat a lot more fruit, a lot more leaves, and they have a different social structure than some of the other species in here as well.
All right, so maybe we are going to probably a lot during this chat. Who do we have here at the enrichment item?
So that's one of our favorite little primates here at the zoo. That is a pygmy marmoset. Pygmy marmosets are the smallest monkey species in the world. They're a species that, again, is found in the western Amazon. And we have two pygmy marmosets, two boys here at the Buttonwood Park Zoo.
Great. The other one's up there if you can see them. So the Titis that we're trying to see are up here at the top. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that species in terms of who we have in our exhibit here?
So we have 4 Titi monkeys here at the zoo. Crumpet and Madeira. Carrie, the other two names? Biscuit.
Mila, and Mila.
Mila? Okay, so we have a family group of 2 adults, a male and a female, and 2 offspring. And they typically live in a family group. And in this case, we have the parents and the 2 offspring they have, and more than likely the mother is pregnant at this time as well. Now, with them not coming down right now, they are a shyer species. The marmosets that you see right out there, they're just right out front trying to grab the food, whereas the Titis are much more cautious, and that's part of the reason they're not coming down. Right now they're spending time up in the trees.
I am just going to show you maybe a picture of them up from the sign here, just so you can know who we're talking about. All right, we did have a question from Peyton and Piper about what a group of Titis would be called.
So typically, there's 2 different terms you use when you're talking about primates. Either it's going to be a group or a troop. Truthfully, this is an extended family group. So this is a family group of Titi monkeys. Mother, father, and 2 offspring. 1 male, 1 female offspring. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, 3, and then the third one.
And the third one, so the 5.
Unknown, yeah.
Yes, unknown gender is that. 5 Titi monkeys in there right now.
How old is the baby?
3 months.
3 months
old.
So we have a 3-month-old in here who we're definitely not going to see it be hiding on.
I'm
parents?
Dad right now, so you can kind of see, I don't know if the camera will get up there, but way up on Dad, to the left a little.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to see them with this lighting. Can you talk a little bit about I know they have an interesting way that they raise the babies.
Yep, actually, and so Mom, most people think that Mom is the primary caregiver for these guys, but actually it's Dad. So baby will go to Mom to nurse, but is on Dad most of the time. So I would say it's on Mom about 20% of the time and Dad 80% of the time.
And can you explain why that might be an important adaptation for them? parental-wise?
So there's a lot of different issues, a lot of different beliefs of why this happens. So typically, you would have in a primate species, the female would carry around the offspring or the babies for an extended period of time. In these Titi monkeys, the dad carries the baby the majority of the time, 80% of the time. The reason for this, and not to get too technical here, is it takes less energy consumption off of the mother. So basically what this means is the mother can actually breed or produce babies or have babies more frequently when the male takes care of the baby most of the time. It has to do with energy. And this is an evolutionary thing, again, not to get too technical, but from an evolutionary standpoint, they will have more babies because the male is more involved in the parental raising of the offspring.
Great. And Peyton and Piper, age 12, were wondering, in the wild, would they be found together in a group like this?
In the wild, they have the same family structure where they will stay in an extended family group. Typically, they're going to have mom, dad, and maybe up to 5 children in the group as well. But typically, they're not going to go more than 7. But they are a species that have what is called monogamous pairs. So mom and dad do stay together throughout their life, and they have a series of offspring. Once the offspring, the kids, get to a certain age, they would go off and start their own families. And that's usually about 4 or 5 years after being born.
Great. Logan, age 8, is wondering how old these guys are and how long can they live for?
So Madeira is actually our oldest. She's 12 years old. Crumpet is 6. Biscuit is 2.5. Mila is 1.5. And Baby is 3 months old. In captivity, they can make it into their early 20s. Out in the wild, I think that's still unknown what their ages, their lifespan is.
Great. What do they eat? What are you giving them right now for food?
So as a species of Titi monkeys, they're going to eat more leaf and fruit material. The pygmy marmosets who Carrie's showing right now, they're going to eat a lot more insects and what is tree gum or tree sap. But the Titi monkeys eat very little protein matter. They may eat some insects, but they're mostly going to eat fruits and leaves. In the wild, down in the Amazon, various fruits are blooming at different times a year, so they have a very large variety of a diet of different types of fruits. And you can see one coming over. That's one of the juveniles, Carrie?
That's Mom.
Mom, sorry. That's Mom coming down to take some treats from Carrie.
How big can the group get?
Typically, they're not going to get more than 7. So typically, it's a pair and up for 4 or 5 children living in the group until the children get to an age that they move on to start their own families.
Great. Samantha, age 7, wants to know what their conservation status is.
Good question. So we have 2 primate species in here. We have the Bolivian gray Titi, who actually are in decline, but they're still considered a species of least concern. So although their numbers are declining in the wild, they're still doing pretty well. And that has to do with the fact of where they are in the western Amazon is not really a place that a lot of people can go in, because poaching is one of the major challenges you have here in collection for the pet trade. The other species in here, the pygmy marmoset, is currently listed as a vulnerable species. They are declining in the wild as well. So you have a species of least concern, the TTs, and then you have a vulnerable species with the pygmy marmosets.
Teddy, age 5, wants to know how many teeth they have.
That's a very good question. So, and I will again not get too technical here, but that's a great question, Teddy. They have 36 teeth. So humans, apes, all monkeys from Asia and Africa, they have 32 teeth. So we have 32 teeth. These species that are found through South America, aside from the Gelbes monkeys, they all have 36 teeth. So they have an extra premolar compared to what we have. So they have the same dental formula as us, but they each have 4 extra premolars in their mouth.
And who are we hearing screaming right now?
I thought that was you, Carrie. So that is our southern lapwing. Down on the ground there is a species. This is called a southern lapwing. This is a shorebird species that is found actually inland around lakes and ponds. It is a species called southern lapwing, which is found in southern South America. It's a species I've actually seen many times down in South America, and they're this loud in the wild as well.
Let's see. How long will the osprey stay at the zoo before they're moved to another zoo as part of an SSP?
As part of an SSB program, once these guys get about 4 years of age, 5 years of age, similar to what you would see in the wild, they would then be sent to pair off with the opposite sex to start their new pair at another zoo. So these guys will be here for a couple more years. Obviously, the baby will be here for about 4 more years. So typically at the age of 4 or 5 years of age, they would be going to another zoo to find a mate for life.
Excellent. Hannah, age 8, wants to know why the keeper is wearing a mask.
That's a very good question. There's been a lot of news lately about some tigers at the Bronx Zoo who actually got COVID-19. We've known this all along with different types of coronaviruses, and it's the same for the flu, and it's the same for the common cold, and it's even same for some of the cold sores that humans get. Primates, being very closely related to humans, can be susceptible. So as a precaution, not only for COVID, but during the entire flu season, staff wears what is called PPE, in this case a mask to protect not themselves, but to protect the monkeys from any germs that the keepers may have. We do this always with our primates. We're doing it much more with our carnivore species, particularly our cat species.
Great. How fast are they, or what is their best form of locomotion, maybe?
So these guys are tree dwelling. Rarely does a Titi monkey, or for that matter, a pygmy marmoset ever come to the ground. They are more stealth than fast. They're very good at jumping in between branches, weaving in between vegetation, and that's how they protect themselves. In the wild, they're vulnerable mostly to raptors and some small carnivore species, so they're very good. So they're not known for their speed, they're known for their stealth, their ability to hide among the trees and the branches.
Great. Ryan, age 12, wants to know if they use their tails to swing.
So that's a very good question, Ryan. This is not a species that has a prehensile tail. Anytime you see a species with a long tail, that's usually for balance. This can go with cats, this can go with monkey species. They do not have a prehensile tail, which means they would be able to hang from their tail. One of the interesting things about Titi monkeys, and I'm not sure if Carrie can show that right now, is they have a social bond where when they're sitting together as a family group, they will entwine their tails together. And this actually is a form of social bond and a level of comfort that they will all sit together with their tails wrapped around each other's tails.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that right now, but 2 of them have their tails wrapped together here.
And I apologize for my yelling. I'm just trying to outdo the southern lapwings in the exhibit. They seem to be winning at this point.
Sophia and Eleanor want to know if they would get along with gorillas, or do they live near gorillas?
So they do not live with gorillas. Gorillas live through the equatorial forest of Africa. These have a similar habitat in the sense that they come from tropical rainforests down in South America. But these are South American species. Apes, or in this case gorillas, are an African species, so they do not overlap. Truthfully, that is not a species that you would put together. There are some levels of concern for disease process because some of the germs that a South American monkey carry would not be good for a African species. At zoological institutions, many African monkeys are actually kept in the same habitat as gorillas, but you would never use a South American species just because of concerns about disease.
We've had a few questions about if they have a favorite keeper. Do they like interacting with people?
So these guys, we find them just to be a little bit more shy than our other primates. But I would say their favorite keeper is whoever has their favorite treats.
And what are their favorite treats?
These guys really enjoy fruits and nuts and seeds.
All right. Julie was asking about the tortoise in the background. Where did the tortoise disappear to?
Hanging on the right side right now.
Oh, way over here.
So some of the things we try to do in the rainforest, rivers, and reefs is that we have mixed species exhibits. So it's not only just primates and birds, it's actually reptile species as well. In this particular habitat, the reptiles we have in here are yellow-footed tortoises. They do very well, they are very slow moving, but they are a tropical forest species that actually thrive in this environment as well. So it gives a nice added element. The monkeys stay up in the tree, the tortoises use the ground area. The lapwing screams at the tortoise like he screams at us, so it works out very well.
Peyton wants to know if they're soft, the Titi monkeys.
So the Titi monkeys do have a soft fur or a coat, also called pelage. So yes, they are a relatively soft species. A lot of times you see a fluffy species and you realize that they have a coarse fur. These guys actually have a very dense, soft fur. Now, why would they have such a dense fur if they come in from such a tropical area? Truthfully, as much as anything else, it helps them protect them from bugs and insects, because the Amazon is loaded with those types of little crawling creatures. So it actually helps to protect them, gives them some type of protection from their environment.
Great. What is their best sense?
So they have a combination of two scents that are going to be their best. It's going to be their sight and their hearing. Both are extremely strong with this species. They do have normal, say, human-like smells, but they don't rely like a cat or a dog on their smell. They're mostly, the best scents are going to be sight and hearing.
Are they nocturnal, or are they usually out during the daytime?
So they are what is called diurnal, which means they're active throughout the day. This is a species that becomes very vulnerable to predation at night, particularly to owls and some small cat species like ocelots and margays. So what happens is at night they usually get themselves into a big vine cluster or a tree cavity, and that's how they protect themselves at night. They cuddle up together and they get protected either under thick vines or into a tree cavity.
Do we know what zoos these guys came to us from?
So the parents, all the three kids were born here at the Bunwood Park Zoo since we opened in July 2017. The parents came from the Minnesota Zoo, and with one of them via the Bronx Zoo. So part of the SSP program is that we are moving animals around to make sure we're maximizing gene diversity with these guys. But one of these animals originated from the Bronx Zoo, and the other one originated from the Minnesota Zoo in Minneapolis, or Apple Valley, actually.
Hannah, age 8, wants to know if they're very smart.
So in general, that's a relative term. Are they as smart as humans? No. Are they as smart as the smartest primate species like capuchins and chimps and orangutans? No. Are they the smartest in their exhibit? Yes. So they are still a relatively smart species. They are not the smartest primate species. They are not the smartest monkey species, but they are still a very intelligent species.
And just for the folks at home, they have a sense of perspective. How big would you say these guys are? How much do they weigh?
So they're going to weigh 2.5 to 3 pounds. Usually end up being a little bit more robust in captivity because people like Carrie love to give them lots of treats. Comparing them to a size, maybe, I don't know, double the size of a squirrel. Trying to think of 2/3 the size of a raccoon. So they're good sized animals.
A little bigger than the tamarins we met last time.
The pygmy marmosets are teeny. They're only about 100 grams or maybe like 1/4 of a pound, again, depending on how much food Carrie gives them in any given week. They are tiny and they're about the size of a chipmunk.
Ryan, that's a great question. He wants to know, can we still purchase memberships to the zoo during the closure?
So that's an excellent question, Ryan. And the way you can still purchase a membership to the zoo. And the way it works is that if you purchase a membership, the timeline on the membership will not kick in until the zoo reopens. So say we open in July. If you buy a membership now, it doesn't kick in until July, and we're actually going to give an extra month. So if you buy a membership now, we open in July, wishful thinking here, we open in July, you get an extra month, it would run through August 2021.
All right. Kaiden would like to know if they would get hurt if they fell. You said they don't really come to the ground, but do they ever fall?
So occasionally they will fall. Typically the only monkeys that are going to fall in the group are either going to be a very older animal that doesn't have the same level of balance or a very young animal. And I will say that a few times our younger animals have fallen, not always to the ground, but they'll fall some distances. Typically they're well adapted to jumping long distances, or in this case falling long distances. We have not seen any type of injuries, and typically they shake it off and they run back to mom or dad.
Sophia, age 6, and Eleanor, age 3, want to know, do they ever hunt?
That's a very good question. So you've got two species of primates in there, the Titi monkeys and the pygmy marmoset. The Titis eat less animal matter. They'll hunt small lizards, insects, possibly a bird if it became opportunistically available. The pygmy marmosets will eat a little more protein, and they will eat small lizards and insects a lot more than the Titi monkeys. Titi monkeys hunt less than the pygmy marmosets. Even the pygmy marmosets don't hunt a lot because they mostly eat the gum and sap out of trees, but they will hunt some.
All right, Ryan, age 12 wants to know if they interact with these other species in here.
So they do interact in a different way. They're tolerant of each other. They work around them. Someone we have not talked about is Rico, green Arasauri species. He pretty much dominates this exhibit. He is the most dominant species in there. So in that particular case, the Titis and the pygmy marmoset, they give him a wide berth. He doesn't bother them, but they know if they get too close to him, he's going to fly at them, what have you. So these guys co-mingle, they work well, but you rarely will see the different species hanging out together. They just work very well in the same environment, similar to what you would see in the wild.
Chloe, age 9, has a question, maybe not related to the Titis, but just about, as the director of the zoo, can you talk a little bit about how someone would become a zookeeper or working in a zoo?
That's a very good question. So what a lot of people don't realize, they see the people like Carrie working with the animals, and it looks very glamorous. I will say it's an enormous amount of work. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's an enormous amount of science in what we do. Everything we do is based on scientific practice. So our diet's formulated through science. Our veterinary care is scientific based. Our behavioral programs are science based. Our research is science based. So for one to get involved in the zoological field, in this case become a zookeeper, they are going to have some type of science degree, typically in biology, typical in zoology, and they also have to get a lot of practical experience or hands-on experience, which usually comes from volunteering and interning at the zoo. So if someone is serious about becoming a zookeeper, they got to be very strong in their math and science, they got to plan to get a degree in some type of biological or zoological science, and they need to get hands-on experience through volunteering or interning at the zoo.
Great. We've with a lot of the animals we've been meeting, like Molly and the otters, we've talked a little bit about play and the importance of play. Juliana, age 8, is wondering, do these guys play when they're babies? Is play an important part of their life like other animals?
So play is an important part. You will see more play in juvenile animals than you will see in adult behavior. Typically the adults are going to be more serious, but since we have 2 juveniles and a 3-month-old in here, they are constantly playing. And playing is designed as a method to learn behaviors. They learn how to jump from branches. They learn how to groom each other. They learn how to hunt for things in the wild. I think you see this a lot of times with species like lion prides and what have you, where the little ones are always wrestling and trying to learn how to hunt. You see this in the primates as well. It's different because they're doing less hunting and more foraging, but the play is a way to learn behaviors that they will need as adults.
All right. Silas, age 9, is wondering if these monkeys get annoyed by the sounds of the birds.
I think they're less annoyed than I am, but no, they're used to it. Where they come from in the tropical forest of South America, the lapwings wouldn't even be in the top 20 as far as the loudest birds. There's species like macaws screaming, parrots screaming. So the Amazon and tropical forests of South America are very loud, and they're very used to these noises. Be honest with you, the lapwings don't typically yell as much as they are now. They're yelling at us because they see all the activity on the outside. They don't do this all day long. Part of that is an alarm call. Part of that is a communication of stay away from my exhibit, and they are basically yelling. As the longer we stay here, you'll notice the less they are screaming. That's because they're getting bored with us and they don't feel like they need to do their alarm calls anymore.
All right, follow up to what you were just talking about, becoming a zookeeper. Hannah, age 8, would like to know how old you have to be to volunteer.
So typically, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, we typically want people to be out of high school when they volunteer. We do have some other younger programs that we do with our education department that does give you some level of exposure to animals, through our counselors in training, some other programs. So there are some younger programs, but because of the nature of what we do, we typically are looking for volunteers college age or older, but there are some younger programs that we allow access to some of the different animals at the zoo.
Sophia wants to know if they have a shelter or do they just live up in the trees?
So here at the zoo, we do give them a variety of what we call nest boxes. The nest boxes mimic a tree cavity out in the wild. In the wild, they will spend a significant amount of their time under entwined vines, or in a fallen tree, or in a tree cavity. But we do have nest boxes here at the zoo that mimic what they would use in the wild.
Right. And what would they make those out of in the wild?
Typically in the wild, either they're going to be in basically a clump of vines and vegetation to hide under, or they're going to be in a tree. See this in New England, some of the trees, they will be hollowed out. In the Amazon, you see a lot of either dead trees or trees that have openings in them, different types of figs, strangler figs and what have you, and they will hide among the openings in the trees or in a tree cavity.
Great. All right, well, I think we are wrapping up on questions here. I think, as always, I learn a lot during all of these. I hope you guys are learning a lot from our director, Keith. Keith, do you have any final thoughts on the Bolivian Titi monkeys before we head out?
No, I mean, the Titi monkeys, I mean, they are a shyer species. This is one of the challenges of trying to film them today. I'll be honest with you, it's probably me out here trying to yell over the southern lapwings that have caused them to be a little more shy than usual. They're not this shy with the keepers. It's just the loud director out in the hallway yelling, trying to talk over the birds. They are a great species. It is a unique species here at the zoo. There are only about 50 of these guys in zoos across the world, so this is a species that is fairly rare, and we've had great success with them. I don't know if you can get a picture of the baby on the back over there.
Is it this one that I have on?
One going up the branch, and of course, as soon as you do that, they move.
What I can say, I know it's been hard to see them. We have gotten some good shots. I will stay here maybe for a couple minutes after we wrap up the Q&A with Keith, and maybe if you guys stick around, maybe they'll sneak down when it's just me.
So what
but
she's
also,
saying is when the loud Keith leaves, the monkeys will come down and be more normal.
He did just admit that might be why. But also yesterday we actually posted a really great video of the baby on Dad that you could find on our Facebook and Instagram pages for Zoo Lovers Day. So definitely go look at that if you want a really good look at the baby and the family. So I want to thank Keith and Carrie for coming out. Like I said, I'll stick around for a minute or two and see if they sneak down. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and for those of you who have been donating, we really appreciate your support during this time and the ability to connect with you virtually and continue these daily chats. We hope to see you on tomorrow at 11, and we'll maybe just do a little quiet viewing of the exhibit for like a minute. So thank you guys.
Everyone.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Carrie. So if you're still with me, if you see that little extra tail, that's the baby on the parent's back. You may not be able to see the baby's body, but you can see that extra, oh, yep, there's his face. Awesome. Hopefully you guys got to see that. All right, I think that's all we're gonna get for today. Have a good day, everybody.